The chat was popping YouTube. Here we are, part 4 of my villain deep dive into the Daleks. Now you may have noticed that parts 1 and 2 have been re-uploaded, and that's because the BBC has been manually disabling the originals due to copyright infringement. So yeah, the views of the originals still count for watch time, I guess, but they haven't struck the channel. But I'm going to be greatly minimising the amount of clips I use from now on, just to try and avoid this issue. This entire series has been a mistake, but anyway, let's get into it. So the Daleks and Doctor Who were off the air for about 15 years, the TV movie excluding, but all that would change with the greatest Doctor Who season of all time. Season 1 of the relaunch with the goated Doctor Who, Christopher Eccleston. Now Eccleston has the best era of the Daleks ever. RTD knew how to write the Daleks and they have never been better. Is that a hot take? It really shouldn't be. So in 2005 we were treated to Robert Sherwood's Dalek, based on the Big Finish audio Jubilee. In this episode, Rose and the Ninth Doctor catch a distress signal and arrive in the bunker of billionaire internet owner Henry Van Statten. Van Statten captures them and informs them that he has a single living alien in the basement. He sends the Doctor in to talk to it, and it's a Dalek.
Impossible.
The Doctor freaks out and tries to kill it, and the two of them have a conversation about the Time War, the war to end all wars that took place off-screen between the classic series and the new one. In it, the Daleks and the Time Lords fought for the control of all time and space, and both races were wiped out by the Doctor. So the Daleks are a little different now. They have a slick new bronze colour scheme and a whole lot of new features that makes them like, an actual threat to all sentient life. But we'll get there. So Van Statten saves the Dalek from the Doctor and then begins to experiment on the Doctor because he's an alien as well. So Rose, who's been off flirting with this other English dude called Adam, sees that the humans are torturing the Dalek and goes down to say hello. When this happens, the Dalek plays the pity card and tricks her into touching its casing as it recognises her as a time traveller.
I shall die alone. Rose, no!
In the Time War, the Daleks evolved to be able to use time energy as a power source, and so the Dalek saps some of that sweet time juice off of Rose and regenerates. It breaks free of its cage, crushes its torturous head with a sucker arm, and then begins to make a run for it.
What you gonna do? Sucker me to death?
So Rose and Adam run off and the Doctor's freed by Van Statten, as he is the Dalek expert. So the Doctor then explains the Daleks, and let me tell you, the RTD Daleks are straight up apocalypse, bringing cosmic horrors. The Dalek is a genius, can interface with technology using its sucker arm, can absorb the internet for info and the power grid to regenerate its casing. Its midsection can swivel now, and it's surrounded by an energy shield that melts all bullets, and, like a remembrance, it can fly. Yeah, so this thing is basically indestructible and starts to slaughter its way through Van Statten's guards while Rose and Adam run for it. The Doctor and Van Statten realise that they can seal Van Statten's vault with the Dalek inside it, as if the Dalek gets out, it will just, kill all life on Earth.
It must be willing to negotiate. There must be something it needs. Everything needs something.
What's the nearest town?
Salt Lake City.
Population?
1 million.
All dead. If the Dalek gets out, it'll murder every living creature. That's all it needs. But why would it do that?
However, the Dalek realises that the Daleks are dead and has a crisis of identity as it has no orders anymore. There's a lot of really good scenes between the Ninth Doctor and this Dalek, but we'll get there. So Rose gets stuck in the vault with the Dalek, but the Dalek can't kill her. It is beginning to mutate, because in addition to it absorbing the time energy to regenerate, it also absorbed Rose's own DNA and is becoming more like her. The Dalek then uses Rose to get the Doctor to open the vault and trottles off upstairs to kill Van Statten. So meanwhile, Destro goes and gets a gun from Adam's alien gun collection and sets off to kill the Dalek. However, in the elevator with Rose, the Dalek has a meltdown because it can't understand what's wrong with it. It's beginning to feel the full human emotions and it doesn't know what to do. So it gets to Van Statten but chooses not to kill him. It then decides it wants freedom and blows a hole in the roof and opens its casing so it can bask it all in that beautiful sunlight. Then the Doctor shows up to kill it, but Rose won't let him. The Doctor then realises that he and this Dalek are so broken by the events of the Time War, and that both of them are changing. The Dalek refuses to live as an impure Dalek, though, and elects to destroy itself in a scene that made 5-year-old me cry my eyes out every time. And 24-year-old me too, don't judge. And so ends the greatest Dalek story of all time. This story is amazing. It turns the Daleks into an actual threat, and it's actually kind of funny to see people roast the Daleks in the promos going up to the relaunch release, and for Chris Eccleston to just be like, the Daleks, like, actually threatening now, boys, trust.
The Daleks, right? And he's not scared. You know why? Because we all know they don't really pose a challenge to Doctor Who, do they?
The Daleks do.
Not really.
No, the Daleks do.
Not really.
You'll see.
Well, do they beat him?
You'll see.
Well, we know the answer. I won't tell any of the kids.
Do you, though? Do you know the answer? Have you seen
don't scare me now. Now you're getting scary.
Yeah, we get a full deconstruction of the Daleks. It shows us what just one Dalek is capable of, and really uses what some might consider to be very two-dimensional character traits to turn them into a very fleshed-out examination of what being a Dalek is really about. The entire thing is a beautiful character study where both the Dalek and the Doctor foil each other. Both of them are touched by Rose in different ways, and both of them start to become more like the other. However, the Doctor can move on from his pain, but the Dalek refuses to. This is the greatest Dalek story of all time, and I mean it. Genesis doesn't come close, and that is a hot take, but this could have been the only time the Daleks ever showed up in the new series, and they still would have been iconic. And really, the Daleks never get better than this. Although, on a different note, when the relaunch came back, it wasn't actually assured that the Daleks would even be in it, because the Daleks and Doctor Who, the rights are actually separate. The Terry Nation's estate actually owns the rights to the Daleks, not the BBC. So, there was actually a script, and if you get your hands on the book called the Dalek Handbook, there's actually some excerpts from the script in there, called Absence of the Daleks, and it would be those little ball things from the episodes of The Master, the Toclophane. That would have been what was in Van Statten's vault, and they would have been the things that caused the Time War. They would have come in from the end of the universe and started just killing everybody indiscriminately, which is quite interesting that they were used, later by Russell T Davies. The other thing that becomes apparent as we go through this is it had often been theorised that the Terry Nation's estate put in a clause with their contract with the BBC that the BBC is contractually obligated to feature the Daleks in every season of Doctor Who. Because there are a lot of Dalek cameos, especially as we go into the Moffat era, that really don't make sense, and it becomes apparent that the Daleks have to be featured in every season. I don't think that's ever actually been confirmed, but let's be honest, that's what happens here. Anyway, we wouldn't have to wait long to see the Daleks again. They showed up later in the same season for the absolutely epic Bad Wolf and Parting of the Ways two-parter and season finale. So Bad Wolf barely features the Daleks at all. Basically, the Ninth Doctor, Rose and Captain Jack get transported to game shows from hell and realise that the Daleks have been controlling the events of the human empire for centuries and are using the dead humans in the games to grow an entire new army for them. Rose ends up on their flagship and the Doctor and Jack go to rescue her. But the cliffhanger is really epic. So we saw what one Dalek was capable of in Dalek, and now we get to see what 500,000 of them can do. Great setup, great payoff. So the Doctor and Jack land the TARDIS right in the middle of the Dalek fleet and put a force field around it. The Doctor then has, a shouting match with the Daleks and then asks them how this many of them have survived the Time War.
So tell me, how did you survive the Time War?
They survived through me.
It's then revealed that the Dalek Emperor survived the Time War and fell through time to this point and has been using dead humans to grow new Daleks. Now this should theoretically make the Daleks impure, but the Emperor and his Daleks have gone completely insane. The Dalek Emperor now believes himself to be a god, and the Daleks now worship him as one.
I am the god of all Daleks. Worship him, worship him, worship him.
Now, it's not entirely explained here if this is the same Dalek Emperor as Evil of the Daleks or not, but there's quite the debate on that, actually, online. But anyway. So the Doctor then yeets it back to the game station and realises that he can use it to transmit this death ray called a delta wave, which fries your brain. He can then use it to kill all the Daleks. The Daleks then accelerate their plans and invade Earth and the game station. Jack mounts a defence with the volunteers he can find, and they all get absolutely slaughtered by the unstoppable Daleks.
kind of figured that.
The Doctor tricks Rose into going home to save her and manages to get his Delta Wave ready just as the Emperor's Daleks get to him. However, the Delta Wave, while killing all the Daleks, will also kill every human on Earth, and so the Doctor is presented with the exact same decision he was at the end of the Time War, his biggest regret. At the end of the Time War, he chose to, wipe out all the Time Lords to kill all the Daleks, but this time he chooses not to do it, completing his character arc, which is interesting, because, actually in this season the Doctor himself hasn't really been in command of the climax of many of the episodes, so it's kind of nice to see like a true moment where the Doctor is in command, and he gets a complete character arc. This is his moment to shine this episode, and one of the reasons why I think Eccleston is the best Doctor. He's the only Doctor to really get a complete character arc, except for maybe Capaldi. But anyway, so Rose shows up then, as she absorbed the Time Vortex, became a Time God, and then uses her new powers to just wipe the Dalek Emperor and his Daleks from existence.
The Time War ends.
I will not die. I cannot die.
So a bit of an anticlimactic ending, but the Daleks are just so OP in this era, it's kind of hard not to Deus Ex Machina it. But it kind of works, because the Doctor manages to take the energy out of Rose, but it kills him instead, and forces him to regenerate. And really, this should have been where the Daleks ended, let's be honest. The Emperor is dead, the Time War is over. I mean, this has to be the end, right? They're all dead. We'll see. So, this episode is amazing. The Emperor and all his endless pontificating is the best Dalek character to date. Give me less Davros and more of this every day. The Daleks are so threatening here, they actually live up to the hype of Dalek. The conservation of ninjutsu argument doesn't even apply to the Daleks of this era, which is impressive. Amazing stuff. The Daleks are so creepy as well. They don't twitch and, they're not yelling all the time. They're quite silent for the most part, and they're just so eerily still. This is the best era, and this is the perfect modernisation of the 60s Daleks. Just wow. But we wouldn't have to wait long to see the Daleks again, as they now show up in every season. And they show up in the cliffhanger of Army of Ghosts. So while the Cybermen were invading the Earth, the Daleks' void ship was the thing that shattered the reality to let them in, and the Daleks emerged from the void ship with something called the Genesis Arc. In probably one of the best cliffhangers of all time.
How did you create that sphere?
The sphere is not ours.
What?
The sphere broke down the barriers between worlds. We only followed. Its origin is unknown.
That's not Cyberman.
Oh my god.
Location Earth. Life forms detected. Exterminate! 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 Exterminate!
So anyway, they need Rose and or Mickey to touch this arc to open it up, similar to the Dalek and Dalek. However, these Daleks are not your average space Nazis. They are the cult of Skaro, led by the Black Dalek Sec, with Daleks Thay, Jast and Khan. These guys are the elite of Dalek kind. So they then begin to fight the Cybermen after having a bitch fight with them, and Mickey stumbles into the Ark like an idiot and manages to open it up. It is then revealed that the Genesis Ark is actually a Time Lord prison ship that the cult of Skaro managed to steal from the Time War that contains millions of Daleks. The Daleks then begin to, kill everyone in London, but the Doctor manages to reverse the, void gate thing that everybody came through to suck the Daleks back in. But he loses Rose in the process. However, the cult of Skaro managed to emergency temporal shift away at last minute. So this is a lot weaker than the other Dalek episodes, but they still work. The Daleks are still a threat, and because of how threatening they were in the other series, the reveal is amazing. In these RTD episodes, you really don't have to suspend your disbelief much to believe that these Daleks are a threat. The story takes them completely seriously, so you can basically ignore their ridiculous design. Nicholas Briggs continues to amaze with his performance as all the Daleks, and come on, this was the Daleks versus Cybermen episode. When I was 7, this was a shit. This was the best episode of all time. It was the Daleks versus Cybermen episode. What more could you want for a kids show, really? And the Cult of Skaro are a really cool idea, having these very intelligent named Daleks. I mean, I think Dalek Zeg is the only Dalek to ever have a name other than these 4 and the humanized ones from Evil of the Daleks. So, yeah. Also, side note, Dalek Jas was originally going to be called Dalek Rabe. I had a trading card of the Cult of Skaro, and it confused me because it said that it was Dalek Sek, Thay, Khan, and Rabe, and then Rabe was changed to Jast for the TV show. But and we really did not have to wait long to see the Cult of Skaro again. They show up halfway through season 3. And in what is probably the most underrated, unfairly hated, and genuinely one of the best Dalek stories of all time, we have Daleks in Manhattan, an evolution of the Daleks. So first off, these episodes have Captain Panaka from Star Wars and Andrew Garfield in them, which is pretty cool. They are also the first time, like, the Something of the Daleks title has been used since the classic series. After the first Doctor, all the Dalek episodes were of the Daleks, right? You had, like, Power of the Daleks, Evil of the Daleks, Day of the Daleks, Planet of the Daleks. I guess there was Death of the Daleks in there, but that was still Something of the Daleks. Then you had, Genesis of the Daleks, Destiny of the Daleks, Resurrection of the Daleks, Revelation of the Daleks, Remembrance of the Daleks. So now we have Evolution of the Daleks. So, that's pretty cool. Now, this story picks up on the Cult of Skaro. Their emergency temporal shift has taken them back into 1920s Manhattan, and they are currently setting about building the Empire State Building so they can use it to catch a gamma ray. The Doctor shows up and finds the Daleks skulking around experimenting in the sewers beneath the Empire State Building, and basically Dalek Sec has realised that the Daleks suck, and need to evolve if they are to survive. They need to create a new species of Daleks and effectively turn back into Khaleds. Human beings are the great survivors of the universe, and so the Daleks want this ability, and so Dalek Sec turns himself into the first of these new human Daleks, which looks questionable. So the Doctor shows up and rescues a bunch of the prisoners, but not before having a conversation with the newly born Dalek Sec. Sec says that they have found the human capacity for war and violence and everything the Daleks ever wanted, but the Doctor slips away back to Hooverville, which is this poor town that they were in episode 1. And the Daleks then attack and kill Captain Panaka, and then the Doctor gets taken back to the Daleks. Dalek Sec spills their whole plan, but he is beginning to change. He's beginning to become more and more human. He felt remorse for the death of Captain Panaka, and he wants to make these new human Daleks more human. He wants the Doctor to take them off to a new planet where they could, start again as a completely new species. The Doctor realises that this could be the way to, end the evil of the Daleks without actually killing them. And so he starts to help the Daleks out. However, quite obviously, the 3 remaining Daleks decide they don't really want to make themselves more human, and so they betray Sec and the Doctor and put 100% pure Dalek DNA into the human Daleks. So the Doctor manages to escape with the help of this, half-mutated chap called Laszlo, and runs up to the top of the Empire State Building to take off the Dalek NEM. The Daleks are put on there to catch the Gamma Strike. However, he fails by dropping a sonic screwdriver, but holds onto the mast as the lightning hits. So the Daleks make an army of human Daleks who literally have Dalek Tommy guns, which is quite funny, and then set out to conquer Manhattan. So the Doctor baits the Daleks into this theatre, and Daleks Thay and Jas show up with the human Daleks to kill him.
Planet Earth will become new Skaro!
Dalek Sec is now a pet on a literal leash, and he sacrifices himself to save the Doctor.
Exterminate!
So for some reason the Doctor manages to convince the Daleks to let the human Daleks kill him, but the human Daleks refuse because the Doctor's DNA got all mixed up in the DNA of the human Daleks, and so they question the Dalek orders now. So there's a shootout between the actual Daleks and the human Daleks, and Thay and Jas get killed. But then Khan reveals that he could have just killed the human Daleks from the control room the whole time, which he then does.
The Dalek humans are failures! Destruct! 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 No!
So why the hell didn't he just do that to begin with? I mean, okay. And anyway, the Doctor goes to confront the last Dalek of the universe, but Khan manages to temporal shift away from him again. So, the end. But this story is commonly cited as being a bad story, but this is seriously one of the best Dalek stories of all time, I'll be real. Sure, the pig slaves and Dalek Sec look really goofy, but can you honestly look me in the eyes and tell me that if that if this story had come out in the classic series, that it wouldn't be beloved as one of the greatest episodes of all time. This story takes the Daleks to their natural endpoint, with them realising that they are so flawed both in biology and ideology, and realising that they need to change, only for their own brainwashing to stop them from, finally becoming a functioning society. It is the antithesis of Genesis of the Daleks, the perfect bookend to the Dalek story. Absolutely amazing stuff. Sure, it's a bit goofy, but this is the closest the Daleks have ever been in the RTD era to their classic selves. I really don't get the hate. Like, seriously, if this was made back in, like, the 70s or 80s or 60s with those type of special effects, this episode would be, like, one of the most well-respected episodes. Just the ideas at play here are fantastic. And this should have been the final end. I'm actually serious. I know I said that with Dalek and I said that with Parting the Ways, but this should have been the actual end for the Daleks. The Doctor finally saw a Dalek turn good, and then the Daleks effectively self-destructed, because that's sort of where their kind of ideology / creation was always going to take them. It's amazing stuff, and I just don't get why people don't like it. I know Dalek Sect looks a little silly, and the pig slaves are kind of weird, but like the Daleks have always had like weird humanoid minions. They had like the Robo-Men, and then they had the Ogrons, and then they had those like weird Dalek troopers. But the Daleks did appear one more time in the RTD run. Well, technically 2 more times if you count the cameo in Waters of Mars, but the Daleks appeared in The Stolen Earth and Journey's End, and they have never been more powerful. The Avengers Endgame of the Doctor Who universe, the Daleks steal the planet Earth and 27 other planets. No, wait, 26 other planets. It was 27 planets in total. Anyway. And use them to create a device called the Reality Bomb, which will wipe out all other matter in the universe. The Daleks have never been as big of a threat as here. They invade the entire Earth, Davros is back, and there is a spiffy new red Supreme Dalek, which was a really cool design.
Supreme Dalek on the bridge! Soon the Crucible will be complete. We have waited long for this ultimate destiny.
And Dalek Khan is an insane prophet, so there's a lot of cool stuff going on here. Basically, Khan's temporal shift took him back into the Time War, and he managed to save Davros from death. Davros has grown a new empire of Daleks, and they have him locked in the basement, because of course they do. And I don't mind Davros here. He kind of works as the final boss. I think the Emperor's better, but he kind of works. I like the performance here the most. This is my favourite Davros performance. And the whole thing of him being subservient to the Daleks is great. But anyway, so the Doctor gets captured with the Daleks along with, the whole squad, but then Donna Noble and the Meta-Crisis Doctor show up and get wrecked by Davros, but in all Davros' hubris, he didn't take Donna seriously, and so she becomes the Dr. Donna, and then, and this is where the episode sort of just, like, gives up. She then uses this random control ball that Davros has to do the following things. Stop the reality bomb.
All Z neutrino relay loops using an internalized synchronous back feed reversal loop. That button there?
Gain control of all the Daleks and make them spin around.
Stop them! Get her away from the controls!
And spin.
Help me! Help me!
And then the Meta-Crisis Doctor uses it to just blow up the Daleks and the whole ship. Why did Davros have this?
Maximizing Dalekanian power feeds. Blasting them back!
More importantly, why do the Daleks let Davros have this? I understand maybe why Davros has a thing where, like, he can control the Daleks from his vault, but why would you let him have that? It's kind of stupid. This is the weakest way to beat the Daleks yet. And, I don't know. So I just remember when this episode was airing, and it was such an amazing time to be a kid in England. Like, the Daleks start so strong. They start so strong in this. They have a banging new theme song, they conquer the entire world, and they even shoot the Doctor. But then the second part kind of sidelines them for Davros, and he gets some amazing scenes, to be honest. This scene with, like, him showing the Doctor his soul or whatever. Fantastic television.
The man who abhors violence, never carrying a gun. But this is the truth, Doctor. You take ordinary people and you fashion them into weapons.
The Daleks end up being silly again, and it kind of messes up the whole thing Russell T Davies had going with the Daleks. I feel the Daleks get the short end of the stick here, and are treated like a joke at the end, and I'm not the biggest fan of this one. I think it's the weakest Dalek story in RTD's run, except for maybe Doomsday, but So, the Russell T Davies run of the Daleks, it is amazing. This is the best they have ever been. Each episode adds some new angle to the Daleks, and the philosophy of what it means to be a Dalek is really well explored here. Dalek shows us, like, the ideology of one Dalek, and turns, what really should be one of the most two-dimensional villains of all time into a fully fleshed out character that is driven mad by its own contradicting belief system. Parting of the Way showed us what the Daleks would be like if they went mad. The Cult of Skaro were like the unorthodox Daleks, and then you get the sort of pure Dalek Empire at the very end there as the finale. They also managed to make the Daleks, a serious threat. They turn them into the alien, like, sort of cosmic horror threat they've always meant to be. And I remember reading a thing with Robert Sherwood where he was asked his wife, he says, what were the things that you find stupid about the Daleks? And she gave him a list, and he made sure that in the script for Dalek there would be a scene devoted to disproving each one. So, for example, the sucker. It crushes that guy's head and then it can interface with technology. It flies up the stairs, all kind of stuff like that. So, when the Dalek showed up in this era, and shit was about to get real, right? And, they really just felt like the actual... It's kind of funny, like, growing up with the Russell T Davies era of the Daleks, and then you go back and look at the classic series and see how just stupid they are. Because the only classic series episode I'd actually seen of Doctor Who when I was a kid was Genesis of the Daleks, because I loved the Daleks. Ever since Dalek first aired, for my birthday I got a remote-controlled Dalek. I still have a Dalek on my desk right now, actually. I'm looking at him. Little miniature Dalek from the classic series that if you press his head he says things. But so my parents, they got me the Genesis of the Daleks DVD, and I remember being a bit bored by it, but even in that, the Daleks are played like a serious threat, so I thought that's kind of how they always were, and then you watch all these other episodes and you're like, oh, they're really not that threatening. But and I like the fact that Davros is not really featured till the very end. I like the fact that Daleks finally get to breathe again without him. They get to be their own thing. Until, obviously, Journey's End, when he's brought in as the final boss, which is pretty cool reveal for Davros. And the performance of Davros is amazing in this one. The voice is so much better. He has a metal hand, because, of course, his hand gets blown off in Revelation of the Daleks. And I think he's really good here. He really works. The Dalek Emperor is amazing. The whole religious angle is really cool. And I think he's the best single Dalek character that we've seen. And the Cult of Skaro are a really cool angle for the story as well. I just think Journey's End is the weak link here. Yeah, as I briefly mentioned earlier, the Terry Nation estate owns the rights to the Daleks, and so the BBC didn't know if they were going to be able to use them in the reboot of Doctor Who. Which is why, Russell T Davies wrote an absence of the Daleks, and that's why they appear all the time, because they appear in every series after this. They appeared, they were a major plot point in Russell T Davies, in Christopher Eccleston's season, but then they appeared in Doomsday, obviously, Evolution of the Daleks, Journey's End, but then in that, when there was just a year of 5 specials, there was that one cameo of them in Waters of Mars. And then in Moffat's run, which we'll get into in the next video, there are a lot of Dalek cameos in that. So, interesting. And after this, the Daleks, it's all downhill from here, folks. Well, not all. I think Chibnall was actually better at the Daleks than Moffat. But Moffat really, really sucked with the Daleks. Although, having said that, Moffat did actually write one of the better Dalek stories, in my opinion, which is Into the Dalek, but we'll get there. So, the golden age of the Daleks. The Russell T Davies run. He knew what he was doing. He knew how to make them threatening. They've never been better, and they never will be, I don't think. Thanks very much for checking out this video. If you like this stuff, like, share, subscribe. Check out the other 3 parts of this video if they're not blocked by the BBC. And if you want to help out, pick up one of my books. Check out my new short story, Mal the Graveyard Man, and thank you very much.